Good afternoon. I'm Teresa Hatton. I'm the CEO here at the Massachusetts Association of Realtors. We're very excited to bring this program to you today. How many, by show of hands, have heard Steve speak before? Okay. Oh, David's doubling down with 2 hands. All right, great. For those of you who are not, let me just provide a brief intro for you. Steve Murray is a senior advisor to RealTrends, the nation's leading trends and research organization, and a partner in RTC REAL Trends Consulting. He's been in the residential real estate field for 46 years. RealTrends is read by more than 54,000 leaders in the residential realty industry, and over 500 CEOs attend the RealTrends conference each year. RealTrends has been a leader in industry and housing consumer research for the past 35 years, and the RealTrends 500 and America's Best Real Estate Agents are examples of such research that they produce. He's the co-author of 4 books on the valuation of residential real estate brokerage firms, and co-authored 2 other books on the past, present, and future of residential brokerage. RTC/RealTrends Consulting has handled over 4,200 client assignments for realty firms over the past 35 years, with over 900 merger and acquisition assignments, totaling $12.4 billion in aggregate value. Steve is joining us from the great state of Colorado in the Denver area, and he's sending the cold air our way. So thanks, Steve. Steve is willing to take questions during the presentation. If you'll use the raise hand feature, that would be very, very helpful. And then we'll ask you to come off mute when you need to ask a question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that nice introduction. Good afternoon to everyone. And sorry about that cold air coming your way. It's been with us for the last 3 days. We touched 10 below the other night. So that's what you have coming your way, is just a big bunch of cold air. So the topic I want to address today, building a successful brokerage. I'm going to give you lots of data and some trends data about that deals with brokerage. Also, this PowerPoint, I've told the folks at Massachusetts Realtors that this is their property and they can share it with you. So if you want to have a copy of it, you certainly can get one. Okay, so the state of the residential brokerage industry, there's 4 areas we're going to take a look at: housing sales, brokerage industry metrics, challenge of new forms of competition, and valuation of firms, etc. And there's some other comments I'll leave with you. So where are we? 2022 existing home sales were down 15 to 20% units from 2021. This does not mean every single market in the country is down by that much. Some are down more, some are down a little less in unit sales, but generally these are national statistics. New home sales down about the same. The forecast for 23 is down another 15 to 18%. Estimates will get down to about 4 to 4.2 million existing home sales for this year. That would be down from 6.2 million in 2021, and down from 5 million in 2022. So this is not the deepest decline in unit sales in my 46 years. Both 1980 to 82 and 06 to 09 were deeper, but this is clearly the most rapid decline in unit sales I have seen in my 46 years. Total home sales are going to be down. Average existing and new home prices will continue to increase slightly. Again, not every market, not every segment of every market. And the national average commission rate reached a new low as of the end of this last year at just below 4.9%. This gives you some historical data of what's happened over the last 10 years. To first, average commission rate. That second group of data, average gross margin. Gross margin is what a brokerage company has after the agents have been paid their splits, but before the brokerage pays their operating costs like salaries, rent, insurance, and other items. So you can see that the gross margin has fallen by about 40% in the last 10 years. Those are national averages. Again, interesting enough, Massachusetts and generally New England are anywhere from 5 to 7 points higher than this number. But the trends in New England are very much the same as any other region of the country. As a side note, to let you know where do we get this data, we do between 200 and 250 valuations of residential brokerage companies a year, and we collect financial information from another 100 to 150 firms. And so this data is accurate, and we can slice it and dice it by region, as well as by type of brokerage model, brands, and all kinds of things. The net profit margin, interesting enough, percentage-wise, has not declined as much as the gross margin. Gross margin down 40%, profit margin is only down about a quarter, but still shrinking. Brokerage companies are under a great deal of stress in these kind of markets. Per agent productivity, not a particularly pretty story. Over the last 10 years, the average agents have gone from 8.9 transactions per agent to 7.2. Anyway, that gives you some background of that data. I want to comment on new forms of competition. Brokers always, to my view, they spend too much time worrying about these people or focusing on what these people are doing. But let's go through a review of them. I call them, break them into three groups: the Wall Street guys, the unbundled guys, and the disintermediators. The Wall Street guys, they have, whether it's Zillow, or I think I mentioned Zillow, Redfin, and Compass as the Wall Street guys. They raise a lot of money when money was cheap and plentiful, with the whole goal to reorganize the entire residential real estate brokerage industry. That was their goal. Both Zillow, Compass, and Redfin, that's at the heart of what they tried to do. Use a lot of technology and a lot of online marketing and a lot of money. Funny enough that every one of them, however, it turns out, have to depend on real estate agents every bit as much as incumbents do, because consumers remain wedded to the use of agents when buying or selling a home. This is not in here, but let me make a note. A piece of data that I should have put in here, but I did not. Real trends for since 2001, so 20 years, about every 4 to 5 years, we hired an outside highly experienced consumer research firm called Harris Insights to study the behaviors and attitudes of recent buyers and sellers. I bring that up here just to confirm the statement I made on this slide. In 2001, the first year we did our study, 81% of recent buyers and sellers said they used an agent to buy or sell. The last time we did this 3 years ago, the number was 91%. So even with all the additional competitors, technology, and spending, the percentage of all buyers and sellers that used an agent went from 81% to 91%. One last comment there. The great myth of the last 30 years or so was that technology would enable Gen X and millennial buyers and sellers to bypass agents and just do it themselves using technology. Interesting enough, that last Harris study we did, 92% of all millennials used an agent when they were buying or selling a home. So all kidding aside, these guys, now what's happened, a little over a year ago, year and a half ago, Wall Street, which had basically said, we don't care about making money. You don't have to make money. We just care about you growing your business, growing your share of the market. About November of 2021, Wall Street changed its mind and said, well, you actually do need to figure out how you're going to make money. From that point to today, they have literally cratered the stock prices of people like Compass, Redfin, Zillow, EXP, and several others. I mean, literally crushed them flat, 75, 80, 85% down, because frankly, most of them don't have a path to profitability. So you need to put aside the fact that these guys have a lot of money, that they have they actually do have good technology. We'll grant that. The fact is all of their models still depend on really good agents helping buyers and sellers buy and sell a home. Zillow's turning into a lead generation giant. Compass will be a strong brokerage in the markets they're in. And we believe Redfin will soon focus on what they see as their high quality service delivery and less on their discounting their service fees and if they do those things, they probably can become a profitable member of the brokerage industry. Otherwise, they won't make it. It's that simple. They'll run out of money. The unbundled guys, these are people that basically took the brokerage structure and said, we don't need to have all this space. We don't need to have all these supervisory personnel, and we'll just charge low cost to agents, flat fees, whether it's a monthly fee or transaction fee, and they eliminate space. EXP would fall into this category. They have no corporate office space to speak of. Their agents and teams work out of whatever offices they want to. EXP has no, like I said, except for perhaps their headquarters and perhaps some small regional offices. EXP has done away with office space for agents. Increasingly, other brokers are doing this. I've mentioned some of them, HomeSmart, Realty One Group. Here's a list of some of the ones: EXP, HomeSmart, Realty One Group, United, Fathom, JP and Associates, Virtual Properties. There are companies like these all over the country in a variety of markets and under a variety of names. And by the way, they're doing some of the same things other industries are doing. They lower the constant fee that an agent has to pay. If the agent then needs to get E&O, or the agent wants technology, or the agent wants training, or the agent wants marketing services, they have to pay a la carte for those. No matter what they say publicly, these guys, mostly all of those things are separate charges for an agent's. Although you will rarely see that in their literature. Disintermediaries, the iBuyers and the financial guys, whether it's Open Door, OfferPad, Knock, or Orchard, Ribbon. There's an infinite number of companies offering to say to housing consumers, you don't have to list and sell your home. We'll buy it directly from you. You don't have to worry about getting your house ready to sell or have showings. We'll just buy it from you. Or alternatively, like Ribbon and Knock, they'll say, hey, you own a home and you want to buy another home. We'll help you buy the next home you want and give you 6 months to sell your home. And we'll provide financing for all of that. And basically, as I point out to people, having been around 46 years, I remember all those years ago, brokerage firms used to have things called bridge loans. They used to have guaranteed trade programs. If we don't sell your home, we'll buy it. So it's not like actually this is all that new. It's just that they have a lot more money and a lot more technology, and they all opened in a time when the market was very strong. To their benefit, both Zillow, for example, and Redfin both exited this kind of service offering. And particularly Zillow, I'm sure today, is very thankful that they got out over a year ago before the market downturn started, or their losses wouldn't have been $1 billion, it would have been $3 billion. And even that's real money. Anyway, we expect some, but not all these companies to survive. And these services are actually can be there are a lot of brokerage companies that now partner with these firms to be able to offer these services. without the brokerage having to risk its own capital to do so. So we expect they'll be around. So let's this challenge of all these competitors, but you look at the 20-year history of the RealTrends 500 and up-and-comers, a total of 1,200 of the largest brokerage companies in the country. And this is the performance of those largest brokerages in the country from 1998 to 2018, where we had the best data available. And what you can look at this and see is that our industry has been basically dependent for its success on the rise in the price of homes, because the productivity by agent or by office in our industry, it's not a pretty picture going back over the last 20 years or so. And here's a key thing I always like to tell people, and this is what we've been looking at carefully for 20 or 25 years now. When we look at those top 1,200 firms, we break them into, like, over here independent brokers and over here franchise brokers. Sometimes we look at the unbundled brokers versus the full service brokers. We break them in different groups. We don't see a whole lot of performance differences in terms of change over time. Everybody's suffering from some of these factors. One of the things we conclude, also looking at the company's spending on technology, is that despite the tens of billions of dollars spent in this industry on technology, which normally improves productivity in most industries, it really has not in our industry. So we get to then, what do we say? How do you build a successful brokerage, which is the focus of my presentation with you today? And this is not meant to be with levity. There are really only three things a brokerage company must do to succeed. And those right here are recruiting talent, developing that talent, and have your revenues exceed your expenses. Seems very clear, but it's fascinating that all the evidence shows that many leading brokerage companies are not doing particularly well at recruiting talent. Number two, since productivity continues to fall, we don't see a lot of evidence that whatever brokers are doing to help improve the productivity, develop their talent, has not worked as well as it could. But a lot of brokerage companies are still making a profit, whether they're large or small, or franchised or independent. But these are the three challenges that a broker operator, a broker owner, must face if they wish to grow and have a successful brokerage: recruiting talent, developing talent, and having your revenues exceed your expenses. So, as I said earlier, the data show that in the aggregate, leading brokerage firms are not succeeding at one or two. Their offices are not growing, and their agents are not doing more deals on average. I'll say comment we did last summer, and we produced a special report, and we looked at the top approximately 750 brokerage companies looking back 20 years to see who were the best performers at recruiting, who were the best performing brokerages at increasing agent productivity. And we looked at all those factors, and of the 750 brokerage companies that we had good data for going back, actually it was 10 years, not 20, about a third of them grew their agent count faster than the number of realtors grew in the US. So 1/3 of the top 750 grew their agent count faster than the realtor population grew. Secondly, on per agent productivity, about 1 in 5, 20% of that 750 actually grew their agent productivity faster than the rest of the industry over that 10-year period of time. It can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done. Another thing we point out to brokerage companies, the evidence is overwhelming, is if it were only about the money part of the relationship between a broker and agents, the incumbents would all be out of business already, because for all my 46 years career, there have always been lower cost brokerage firms in the market, in almost every market in the US. So what we know conclusively is if it's only about money, whether it's a Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Berkshire Hathaway, Remax, Keller Williams, doesn't matter. For all of those companies that consider themselves mostly full service, they're all still pretty healthy, and they're all the ones I mentioned and others. So it's not just about money for agents and teams as to where they're going to host their business. The challenge, therefore, for brokerage is to find out what agents and team value and understand it's not always about money, and that relationships and people still matter. So let's take a little walk over here before I come back to a conclusion. This is really just helpful information for those people who are curious about how brokerage firms are valued. I won't spend a lot of time on it. Generally speaking, valuation is based on the last 1 to 3 years average of EBITDA, which is a fancy way of saying after a pre-tax profit. The multiples times that average yearly earnings depends on the size of the firm, the model, location, various things. The range of those multiples today is 2.5 to 4. So if your firm averaged 100,000 profit for the last 12 months or last 3 years, and you average 100,000 profit, your value would be between $250,000 and $400,000. And of course, that price is also affected by the terms. If I'm in our industry, it's rare to see a purchaser, for instance, if your firm, let's say you're a firm using this multiple model, and your firm's worth $400,000, it's rare to see any purchaser today put any more down than 25 to 40% down in cash at closing. The rest is based on what we refer to as an earnout over 2 to 4 years, based on retention of agents and their production. But profit, the point I want to make, is the most powerful indicator of value. Period. A lot of brokerage firms will talk to us in our work about 40 years of culture and tradition and community involvement and activity, powerful, well-known local name. There are all kinds of things that brokers do, but truly, another brokerage company, if I'm buying a one-office 40-agent firm in Farmington, I guess Farmington's Connecticut, Framingham is Massachusetts. The chances are I'm not going to keep that local name anyway. So I'm actually not going to pay extra for a name that has been in that market for 20, 30, 40 years. What I'm more concerned with is, can I get the good people of that brokerage to stay with me? So if you are, second point, if you're increasing agent count, productivity, and other factors can create an opportunity to be higher priced. Clearly, somebody will pay more for a firm that's growing versus one that's not. And we see more and more brokerage firms entering into deals to offer mortgage, title insurance, property management, in some cases, property casualty insurance that are related to the housing market that can be offered through the agents to their buyers and sellers by the brokerage company. Okay, so when we consult with residential brokerage firms, this is like the first question we ask a new client. Why do you own a brokerage company? Is it for income? Is it for equity, growth, and value, or personal satisfaction? And we always ask a new client, which is most important to you? Now, many of them, all kidding aside, will say, well, it's a little bit of all three. And I said, well, that's generally true. But you need to tell me what's the most important one, because you really cannot plan a strategy for a brokerage company unless you make a decision between one of these three. Because you can't design a strategy to say, well, I want to do all three. And of course you want to do all three, but for designing a strategy. So for instance, we may, and I've had clients pick one of these and say, that's what's most important to me. I literally have clients, have had clients that said, I am not all that concerned primarily with income or equity. I want to build a brokerage company that reflects who I am and who I want to associate with. And I'm not concerned how much profit it throws off. And I don't necessarily care how much it becomes worth. I'm working with a client right now. It's, a 35 agent firm in a high price market. And there are 8 equal shareholders. They're all top performing agents of different age, and they're 15 years old. And they really literally designed this brokerage firm not to make a lot of money, but to grow by adding good people, but only to grow with the kind of people they wanted to be associated with. And they've built the #1 market share leading firm in this high-end market following that path. We're working now to determine if that's still their reason for being. And we've asked them to take a step back, all 8 shareholders, now that they're 15 years older, and conclude, is that still their main motivation, is to build a brokerage that really is focused on personal satisfaction. I could give you other examples of people that focus on income or equity, one or the other, but it's critical that a brokerage firm understand the answer to this, because then we can design a strategy of how to build a successful brokerage company. And secondly, the why. We come back here and we go, okay, I know my reasons for owning one. Why you own a brokerage comes first. I'm emphasizing, then the strategy. Once you have a strategy, then the tactics follows the strategy, not the other way around. And then a second big question that we get into with our clients is, what is it what do you believe in? What is it that fits you? What kind of brokerage do you want to have? Is it the largest, the most productive, the most profitable, dominant in a niche or specialty area of the market? As we have written numerous times in Real Trends, our own research and work with clients has shown that if you are determined or have determined you want to be the biggest firm in your marketplace, it's usually unlikely that you'll have the most productive agents, because generally leading market share firms in our industry across the country, market share tends to follow agents. How many agents do you have? I mean, right now, for example, the number one and two national brands, number one national brand is Keller Williams. They have somewhere between 160 and 165,000 agents in the US. And they probably have around 11, maybe a little higher than 11% market share of all transactions in the US. RE/MAX has only 62,000 agents, but they're number two. They probably have around 10%, 9.5 to 10% market share. Now, RE/MAX's agents are far more productive on average, 2.5 times generally, than the average Keller Williams agent, but Keller Williams simply has a whole lot more agents, and that is their model. And RE/MAX's tends to still be focused on, we want to recruit the most productive agents. So there's an idea or an example of what are we focused on. Sotheby's Realty has some different goals, and the markets they're in, they're not in every market because there's not a Sotheby's type market in every market in the US. It may be fine to have Sotheby's, for instance, in obviously Boston. There's a large one in New Hampshire and Vermont. There's a couple more in Maine, a couple down on the Cape. There's one big Sotheby's in Connecticut. But for instance, you're not likely to find a Sotheby's brokerage in Topeka, Kansas. Or you're not likely to find a Sotheby's firm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So part of what it is also once you decide what your focus of your brokerage is what's the culture, what's the belief of what kind of firm you want to have and what kind of people you want to be associated with. And of course, you're asking the questions, what are your strengths as a leader or an operator? These are all real important questions to building a successful brokerage company. What behaviors do you find most appealing in residential brokers or agents? I think some of the more interesting conversations we've had at our company the last 5 to 8 years is teams, which have become a huge factor in the brokerage marketplace, are having trouble now with their own inside agents or team agents who have everything paid for them and all their customers supplied and get a much lower share of the commission dollar than other agents do who don't get all that. And yet they want the same financial arrangement as agents who don't get any of that receive. And the funniest conversation to have with somebody who owns and runs a team is that, well, yeah, welcome to broker world, where brokers have done, in many cases, have done an enormous job in investing in their agents' training and their technology and their marketing support and transaction support, and gone to the wall to help agents, only to have an agent leave for an extra 2, 3, 4, 5% in their split. Now, the good news is not all agents are like that, but the number who are has grown. There's no question about that. We've trained a lot of agents to be, if you will, a bit mercenary, which is their view to the team or the brokerage is, what have you done for me recently? And I'm sure it's familiar to everybody who's on this call. Some other fundamental truths. This is the one that the data just absolutely is clear as a bell on that. There are few, if any, sustainable competitive advantages available to brokerage firms, not in tech or marketing or education. That is, there's not some tool that a brokerage can acquire or rent that will give them some permanent leg up on every other brokerage company in their marketplace. We have not ever seen that in our 35, 36 years almost of consulting work now. It's not like if you go out and get XYZ transaction management platform, and once you get all your agents on it and get all their data on it and train them all on how to use it, that suddenly you have something that nobody else can get that'll help your agents get more listings and handle more buyers. We just have never seen any evidence there was such a thing. Second, there's just no evidence that brokers with, quote, better tech platforms are more productive or more profitable because of it. You may have noticed recently, the last 6 months, we have seen Compass cut 300 million plus or minus out of their technology budgets. We have seen RE/MAX International reduce their headcount at headquarters by 16 or 17% of their total payroll. Almost all those people were in technology, and RE/MAX got out of trying to run their own platform and just licensed with a company called Inside Real Estate and their product KV Core. And we've seen this with Keller Williams, seen it with Berkshire Hathaway, seen it to some extent with Realogy. The big national companies have come to finally understand that they need to make technology available to their agents and brokers, but they themselves don't need to own it because it does not provide any sustainable competitive advantage. And there's no evidence that one technology platform, MoxieWorks or Lone Wolf Technologies or KV Core, and I could keep going, that whether you own one or the other made some big difference in your performance as a brokerage company. And part of it is, I say in this other paragraph, brokerage owners, particularly getting all their agents on board a platform, is like having multiple root canals without anesthesia. It just doesn't work very well, and it's very, very difficult. So our guidance to brokerage companies: don't look to technology to solve your ability to recruit agents, your ability to develop them. Certainly doesn't help reduce your costs. We advise brokerage companies, it's not that you don't need technology. If you want to be able to offer technology to your agents, look where else you can get it. We have a client in a Western major metro. Over the last 15, 18 years, they've grown from a startup to over 750 agents. They're highly profitable. They don't have a lot of office space for agents. They do have extraordinary training, 8 full-time people engaged in training agents, and it's available for those agents. They have a small graphic arts department, but they have no technology platform at all. And they have no technology employees at all. Imagine that. Grew from brand new 750 agents doing about 4,600 transactions. And they don't have a technology department, and they don't have a tech platform. As the owner told me, agents can get transaction management and CRM, customer relationship manager software, 10 different places without me trying to provide it. So we just point them, here's where you can find it. And if you think it's important, there's where you can go find it. So anyway, this is kind of more of the whole issue about this pursuit of technology. So at the wrap up, we say focus scarce resources away from brand advertising. I said a ways back, the data shows that whether you're nationally franchised or local independent, as groups, there is no evidence that having a national brand or being independent, either or, is the major factor that contributes to the success of a brokerage company. It doesn't seem to affect any of the key metrics. As we point out, 3 of the largest national organizations over the last 5, 10, or 15 years, the three of the very largest have spent between $30 and $50 million a year in national advertising. And collectively, they've lost between 60 and 80,000 agents in the US in that time. Then you look at another national company that spends nothing in brand advertising, 0. And over the last 10 or 15 years, they've tripled the number of agents associated with them. I mean, another good example is a current one is EXP. 5 years ago, they had fewer than 10,000 agents. Now they have over 80,000 agents, and they spend nothing in brand advertising. Nothing. So we share with brokerage companies, avoid the twin traps of thinking that if I just have a tech platform, I can recruit better, retain better, and boost productivity. Or that if I have a marketing platform and marketing tools of all kinds, that by itself will help me recruit better and get agents to do more business and help grow my business. The truth is this, clearly from everything we've looked at, the most important factor in the success of a brokerage company is the quality of the leaders, the owners of that brokerage company. Are they focused on recruiting and developing talent and watching their costs? Are they full on working on recruiting and developing talent most of the time? And if they are, and if they're decent at it, then they're likely going to succeed. And if they're not spending their time there, or they don't have the skills to recruit and develop talent, then it's likely going to be a very tough road for anybody. So with that, I am done with the slides, and Sabrina and Teresa, I'll open it up for questions if we have some.
I have a question about how to pay for leads. So should you pay, what is your guidance on paying for leads?
I have a lot of clients that do a lot of acquisition of leads and do it well. The secret to doing it well is make sure that you build a system so you can measure your return on the money you're spending. That is the most important thing. Okay. There's no point spending money to buy leads if you're not measuring the ability to bring them in, to warm them up, so to speak, or curate, I think is the term that's used. Get them to agents who actually know how to work with them and close them, and measure what the return to the company is for the money the company spent to get them. But we know dozens, we've done a lot of work with teams, many of whom buy leads, and some teams are making 200, 300, 400% return on every dollar they spend buying leads. It can work, no question.
Teresa, if I may, Steve, David McCarthy in Boston. How are you, sir?
Hey, David, good to see you.
Good to see
you.
You
already know all this stuff. What are you doing on?
I wish you enlightened some additional information on all of us. I'm sure everyone took some great notes. What is your prediction for the agent fall off or brokerage fall off as we begin what feels like it could be a protracted time of lower transactions? And then my follow-up question to that would be, what's the duration of the slowdown in transaction count or volume of sales of home? Do you think it's 2023? Is it all of 23? Is it going to 24? Thank you.
Let me answer the second question first. Based on everything I've read and all the smart people I've talked to, we could well be right now hitting what we call the trough. This could be the floor. Part of that is the thing that's different about this downturn. There's a couple things. One, we know that over the last 15 years, we have built up a surplus of buyers to available homes on the order of 4.5 to 5 million families. There, that many more families, households were created in the last 10 to 15 years than homes were built. So we have this huge demand still sitting there. We know that. Two, normally in a downturn by now, 6 months into a downturn in the past, we've always seen inventory go up. I mean, measurably go up. And this time it's actually gone down. So there's some strange things here. The good news is for everybody who's on this call and agents who work with your firms, the demand still exceeds the supply. And mortgage rates are starting to drift lower now. So there's a lot of people smarter than I am think we'll hit the floor here in the next few months. And it'll be a slow recovery in terms of unit sales, a slow recovery. As to your first question about the number of realtors, I have been wrong so many times about how many realtors there are going to be. I've stopped speculating about it. I figure I could be a contrarian this time and said, no, so many people want to be realtors, the numbers are actually going to go up. I can't figure. And in fact, I told somebody not long ago, they said, if you could come back knowing what you know now, what business would you want to own in this industry? I said, that's simple. I want to own a state association of realtors. I want to own one. Or a big local one, because people pay all this money to belong and then they don't do anything. Maybe an MLS, that might be good too. But, I think it'll come down a little bit. I mean, facts seem to indicate that over half of these realtors aren't going to do a deal in the next 12 months. They're not prepared for this kind of a market. They weren't prepared for the last one. They're clearly not going to be prepared for this one. So I think the number comes down, but you know what, David, by how much, I have no idea. I would have never dreamed that we'd be at 1.5 million to 1.6 million realtors. It just, to me, it's a head scratcher.
Our pending decline, and this is not anything, throughout the whole state, but our pending decline appears to have hit its worst at the end of December. And
really,
we might be on a less of a decline. It's not an upswing, but as much as it's a less of a decline, which is an upswing. So it'll be interesting, obviously, to see. Our listing inventory is up, but it's still at historic lows. So it's not like it's helping us in any way.
Denver, we go, oh man, this is great. We're a market of 3 million people, Denver Metro. And about 18 months ago, we hit the bottom. We had 2,700 listings for 3 million people. I mean, it's just absurd. And now everybody's celebrating because you know what? We're all the way up to 4,000.
Right, exactly.
We're still a third of what normal is.
Yeah,
here in
that's what we're seeing all the time, is everyone celebrating the minor increases, which is not enough.
I feel for any family, young family, who wants to buy their first home, and even those people who now have a larger family and need to move up, and looking at mortgage rates of not 2.5 to 3, but 5.5 to 6, and just thinking about what I'm going to have to do to be able to make that move. It's just, it's awful.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Sharon Ridley from Start Point Realty. I have a question.
Yes.
What do you think some of the things that we could do to, sustain or to improve our businesses?
The one thing that always has worked for my clients over the years, And I've actually wrote a book about a group of brokers that went through the last downturn. We looked at a small group of brokers that not only got through the 06 to 2010 downturn, but actually grew their companies in that time frame. The one thing we found they all had in common was the statement that if you think you have been close to your people, get closer. Invest more of your time, more of your effort. What are some ideas on that? And ma'am, is your brokerage, how many agents are in your brokerage firm?
I don't own the brokerage, but I work for broker. We have probably like 150 agents.
Okay. So two things. Examples of what, when I interviewed these 50, I think it was 15 or 16 firms that got through that last downturn, improved. One of the companies started a 4 o'clock every afternoon, 4 to like 6, 5 days a week, what they called tea time. And literally they had hot tea and cookies and stuff. And the manager would be there from 4 to 6 every day and invited any agents or staff to come in and just sit and visit. Right? Investing more time in relationships, in being present, in being available. We noticed back in March of 2020, when the pandemic hit, a lot of the business shut down. We talked to most of our clients about getting closer, and we noticed something interesting happen. A lot of our clients, for instance, shifted, as you recall, shifted to all of a sudden using Zoom to communicate with their agents and staff. And initially in April, May, and June, a lot of leading brokers, they were on Zoom calls multiple times a day with different groups of their agents. It was unbelievable. What was interesting is we noticed when the year came to a close that most of those companies, their recruiting was up, their productivity of their agents was up. I mean, everything positive could happen. It wasn't just they floated up on the market the last half of 2020, they actually beat the market. But that's the only change that those brokers made in that time frame. They were just in constant communication with their agents and their staff. And I have commented to most of them, because I get all their numbers, said, why would you stop just because the pandemic is over? I mean, we had a client, one of those guys that got through the last downturn. He told me a story. He had about 140 agents. Told me the story that by 08, he was just out of answers, out of money, out of time. He literally was melting down. And he had 5 or 6 staff, and he got them together for a meeting to tell them he just run out of ideas. And this true story, and they all told me, they said, we were waiting for you to allow us to help. We're all part of your team. Let us work together with you. You're not alone anymore. You may be the owner, but you're not alone. And he just got his team around him. And he said the biggest lesson he had, he's now twice that size, is he never ran his firm again thinking it was all on him. Those are stories of getting close to your people. That's a long answer to your question. But that's the best thing. If I were in your shoes, if I had a brokerage company right now, I'd be spending half my time, at least, in interacting with my agents and my staff.
Perfect. And what was the name of the book that you had written?
It was a little booklet called Against All Odds. And if you will send me a note, I will send you a PDF version of it.
Awesome. I'd appreciate that.
Yep.
And thank you for taking the time to answer my question. I appreciate that very much.
Yep. my email for those who want to have it today is smurray, M-U-R-R-A-Y, at realtrends.com. smurray at realtrends.com. And Sabrina, I'll make sure to remember to send you a copy of that, so you can then have that to distribute to everybody who was on this call if they want to see it. It's just about 42 pages. And it tells the story of 15 brokers that not only got through the last downturn, but who actually thrived. Be
Can I
glad to
ask-
share.
Can I ask a question about a business model of a law firm with paralegals? Why wouldn't that work in the real estate industry? Like the real estate agents would be like the paralegals in the law office on salary.
There are a growing number of teams who operate that way, actually. Where members of the team are specialists in staging, things like staging, inspections, CMAs, and a number of things, working with inspectors and repair people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mortgage and title and escrow where that's occasioned. But we're starting to see some teams where you're seeing what you're referring to is you have a lead agent, and you have other people in support of the lead agent that's what's the right word, specialize in certain parts of the customer relationship with their transaction. I think 100% that could work, because I'm already seeing it work. The key difference, between a brokerage company and a team, by the way, and we've examined the financials of both. Teams, well-run teams versus well-run brokerage, the teams average a profit margin that is 5 to 7 times bigger than a brokerage company. 5 to 7 times bigger a team is than a brokerage company. Why? What is it? Well, the fact is, the most valuable commodity that a brokerage or a team can provide to agents is a live buyer or seller, a prospect, a lead, if you will. A good lead, by all the numbers we've looked at, a good prospective seller or buyer is worth between 40 and 45% of the commission dollar. That's how the market prices it. These teams that we've seen who do this kind of specialty work, they're paying out on average, for instance, 38% of their commission dollar to their own agents. The brokerage company, it's 85. Because to an agent, looks at their brokerage company and says, you've got a good brand name, you've got nice office, I've got a good manager, you've got good technology, or tell me, you got some things that really help. But bottom line, I still got to go find my own buyers and sellers, and that's the hardest thing to do. Long-winded answer. Again, sorry about that. But, and we're starting to see some teams now that are getting, there are several teams that are big enough to qualify to be among the top 100 brokerage companies in the whole country. Place is one. Mark Spain team in the Southeast US. Robert Slack is a big team in Florida. I mean, these teams are doing 10,000 plus transactions a year, and almost all of their business are leads and prospects that have been generated by the team itself. Teresa and Sabrina, thank you guys for having me. I hope this was worthwhile. I see we're at the hour, and I've taken all these people's valuable time.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for
Sure.
everybody for joining. This will be recorded, so if you missed anything or want to re-listen, we'll have it out to you shortly. Thank you.
Stay well.